On a stormy afternoon in Houston, Aaliyah, a black single mother, was anxiously waiting for the bus. That would take her to her first day of work. If she was late, she would lose the only chance she had to support her son. But just then, her little boy noticed an elderly woman with silver hair trembling alone in the rain. Aaliyah froze when she realized the woman was about to fall off the bench. She knew that if she ran to help, she would miss the bus and lose her job. But seeing the woman nearly unconscious, Aaliyah rushed toward her. She carried her into a small store, warmed her up, fed her, and called for help, never knowing that this single act would change her entire life. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from. And subscribe, because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The rain came down like punishment that Tuesday afternoon in Houston, turning the streets into rivers and the sky into a sheet of gray metal. Aaliyah Brown stood under the leaking shelter of the bus stop, one arm wrapped around her 6-year-old son Malik, the other clutching the strap of her worn purse. Water dripped through the rusted gaps in the roof above them, each drop landing with a hollow plink on the cracked concrete. She checked her phone for the third time in as many minutes. 4:47 p.m. The bus was late again. Her shift at Morrison's Diner started at 5:30, and this was her first day. A probationary shift that could mean the difference between keeping a roof over their heads or joining the growing line at the shelter downtown. The manager had been clear: show up on time or don't bother showing up at all. Aaliyah's stomach twisted with an emptiness that had nothing to do with hunger, though she hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. The $23 in her wallet, her last $23, had gone to a kid's meal at a fast food place 2 hours ago. Malik had eaten half and insisted on saving the rest for later mama. The sandwich sat in her purse, now wrapped in a napkin, and the smell of it made her dizzy. "Mama, your hands are cold," Malik said, looking up at her with those big brown eyes that saw too much for a child his age. "I'm okay, baby." She forced a smile, pulling him closer. Her thin jacket, the only coat she owned, did little against the October chill that rode in on the rain. But it was all she had, and Malik was wearing his hoodie, so at least he was dry. The bus route sign swayed in the wind, and Aaliyah closed her eyes, running the numbers in her head for the 100th time. First paycheck wouldn't come for 2 weeks. Rent was 3 weeks overdue. The landlord had stopped answering her calls. If she could just get through today, get through this first shift, prove she was reliable. "Mama, look." Aaliyah opened her eyes. Malik was pointing across the street, his small finger trembling slightly. There, huddled on a stone bench in front of a closed storefront, sat an elderly white woman. Her silver hair hung in wet strings around her face, plastered to her skull by the relentless rain. She wore a floral dress, no coat, no umbrella, nothing, and her arms were wrapped around a large purse that she clutched to her chest like a life preserver. Even from this distance, Aaliyah could see the woman shaking. The woman's eyes stared straight ahead, unfocused, confused. She looked utterly lost. "She's cold, Mama," Malik whispered. Aaliyah felt her heart drop into her stomach. She looked at her phone again. 4:51 p.m. The bus would arrive any minute now, if it arrived at all in this weather. The diner was a 15-minute ride, then a 5-minute walk. She had maybe 10 minutes of buffer time, and that was if everything went perfectly. The old woman shifted on the bench, nearly sliding off, catching herself at the last second. "Not your problem," Aaliyah thought desperately. "You have your own problems. You have Malik to think about. You can't save everyone." But even as she thought it, she was seeing another face. Her own mother's face 3 years ago in the hospice, when the cancer had stolen her memory, along with everything else. Those last weeks, her mother hadn't known where she was, had sometimes called Aaliyah by her sister's name, had once tried to leave the building in the middle of the night, looking for her long-dead husband. "Mama," Malik tugged her sleeve. "She's like Grandma was, at the hospital. Remember?" Aaliyah did remember. She remembered the nurse finding her mother in the stairwell at 2 a.m., confused and crying. She remembered the kindness in that nurse's voice as she'd guided her mother back to bed, had sat with her until she fell asleep. The rain fell harder. Thunder rumbled somewhere to the east. 4:53 p.m. Aaliyah looked down at Malik, then at the old woman across the street, then at her phone. The bus rounded the corner, its headlights cutting through the rain. She had maybe 30 seconds to decide. If you help her, you'll miss the bus. If you miss the bus, you'll be late. If you're late, you'll lose the job. If you lose the job, The old woman's head drooped forward, and for a terrible moment, Aaliyah thought she might fall right off the bench onto the pavement. "Damn it," Aaliyah whispered. Her hands moved before her mind fully caught up. She was already shrugging out of her jacket, already grabbing Malik's hand. "Come on, baby, fast!" They ran. The bus hissed to a stop behind them as they dashed across the street, dodging a car that blared its horn. Puddles exploded under their feet. Rain soaked through Aaliyah's shirt in seconds, cold and shocking against her skin. She heard the bus doors open behind her. She didn't look back. They reached the bench, and up close, the old woman looked even more fragile, her skin papery and pale, her lips tinged with blue. She was muttering something under her breath, words that didn't quite connect. "Have to get home. Ethan's waiting. Where did I put—" "Ma'am." Aaliyah knelt down gentle as she could. "Ma'am, are you okay?" The woman's eyes focused on her, then drifted away again. "I can't find. I need to—" Behind them, the bus doors closed with a hydraulic sigh. Aaliyah heard the engine rev. She wrapped her jacket around the old woman's shoulders, tucking it carefully around her thin frame. The woman barely seemed to notice. "Ma'am, what's your name? Do you know where you live?" The bus pulled away from the curb, splashing water from a puddle. Its red taillights disappeared into the rain. Aaliyah watched it go, and something inside her chest cracked open, fear and regret and a strange, fierce certainty all at once. Malik pressed against her side, and she put an arm around him, both of them already soaked to the bone. "It's okay," she said, not sure if she was talking to Malik, to the old woman, or to herself. "We're going to help you. It's going to be okay." The old woman looked at her, then really looked at her, and something cleared in those clouded eyes for just a moment. "Thank you," she whispered. Aaliyah felt tears prick her eyes, mixing with the rain on her face. She had just thrown away her last chance at stability. Her phone would probably ring in an hour with the manager calling to tell her not to bother coming in tomorrow. But right now, in this moment, with her son standing beside her and this lost, confused woman wrapped in her only coat, Aaliyah felt something she hadn't felt in months. She felt like herself again. The nearest shelter turned out to be a small corner store 3 blocks down, a place with a faded sign that read, "Thompson's Groceries and More." Aaliyah half-carried, half-guided the old woman, while Malik held the umbrella he'd found abandoned in a trash can, bent and barely functional, but better than nothing. By the time they pushed through the door, all 3 of them were dripping water onto the scuffed linoleum floor. Mr. Thompson looked up from behind the counter, a white man in his 60s with reading glasses perched on his nose and a flannel shirt rolled up at the sleeves. His eyes widened as he took in the scene, a soaked black woman supporting an elderly white woman who could barely stand, and a small boy clutching a broken umbrella. "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph," Mr. Thompson said, already coming around the counter. "Get her to the back, there's chairs by the office." Between them, they got the old woman settled in a plastic chair in a small alcove near the store's tiny back office. Mr. Thompson disappeared and returned with a stack of clean towels and a blanket that smelled faintly of laundry detergent. "I'll put on some hot water," he said. "Tea, okay?" "You don't have to," Aaliyah started. "I know I don't have to. I want to." He looked at her steadily. "You did a good thing bringing her in from the rain." While Mr. Thompson busied himself with an electric kettle he kept in the office, Aaliyah knelt in front of the old woman, gently toweling her hair dry. Malik stood close, watching with worried eyes. "Ma'am," Aaliyah said softly, "can you tell me your name?" The woman blinked at her, focusing and unfocusing. "Evelyn," she said finally. "I'm Evelyn." "Okay, Evelyn, that's good. Do you know your last name?" "Hayes. Evelyn Hayes." The words came slowly, like she was pulling them from deep water. I was looking for—" "It's okay, take your time." Aaliyah kept her voice calm, soothing. She'd learned this tone with her mother, that gentle patience required when someone's mind was slipping through their fingers. "Do you know where you live, Evelyn?" "The apartment, with the tall windows. You can see the park." Her hands twisted in the blanket. "Ethan's there. My son. He's waiting for me." "Ethan," Aaliyah repeated, filing the name away. "That's your son?" "Yes, Ethan. And—" Evelyn's face crumpled with confusion. "Sarah. No, Sarah's gone. Sarah died." "When did Sarah die?" "It's okay," Aaliyah soothed, taking her hand. The old woman's fingers were ice cold despite the blanket. "We're going to find Ethan for you, okay? Do you remember his phone number?" Evelyn stared at her for a long moment, and Aaliyah could almost see her trying to grasp at memories that kept sliding away. No, I don't. I used to know. Why don't I know? Tears started rolling down her cheeks, and Malik made a small sound of distress. Mr. Thompson returned with 3 styrofoam cups of tea. He handed one to Aaliyah, one to Malik, and carefully pressed one into Evelyn's shaking hands. "Drink slow," he told her kindly. "It's hot." Aaliyah pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked, and the battery icon showed 18%, and looked at Mr. Thompson. "Do you have Wi-Fi? I need to search for something." "Password's on the wall there. Thompson 1965. Aaliyah connected and opened Google, her fingers moving quickly. "Ethan Hayes, Houston," she typed first. Nothing useful. Then she tried Hayes Apartment Tall Windows, Park, Houston. Nothing. She tried a different approach. Evelyn Hayes, Houston. Still nothing that matched. "Ma'am," she said, turning back to Evelyn, "does Ethan work somewhere? Do you remember where he works?" Evelyn sipped her tea, and something flickered in her expression. "The big building. The one with his name on it. Hayes. Hayes. Hayes what?" Aaliyah leaned forward. "Hayes Global," Evelyn said suddenly, clearly, as if someone had switched on a light. "Hayes Global Industries. That's Ethan's company. He's always there. Always working." Aaliyah's fingers flew across her phone screen. "Hayes Global Industries, Houston." The search results loaded, and her breath caught. Hayes Global Industries was a Fortune 500 company, headquarters in downtown Houston. CEO Ethan Hayes. She clicked on Contact and found a main office number. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Can I use your phone? Mine's almost dead." He handed over the cordless phone from the office without question. Aaliyah dialed, her heart pounding. The phone rang twice, then a crisp female voice answered. "Hayes Global Industries. How may I direct your call?" "I need to speak with Ethan Hayes," Aaliyah said, trying to sound calm and authoritative. "It's urgent. It's about his mother." "Mr. Hayes is in a meeting. May I take a message?" "No, you don't understand. His mother is with me. She's confused, and she was lost in the rain. I need to speak with him now." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, but I can't interrupt. Please." Aaliyah's voice cracked. "She's safe now, but she needs her son. Just tell him. Tell him someone found Evelyn." Another pause, longer this time. "Hold, please." The hold music was classical, something soft and expensive sounding. Aaliyah held the phone so tight, her knuckles turned pale. Malik leaned against her leg, and she ran her free hand through his damp hair. Evelyn hummed tunelessly, staring at her tea. 30 seconds passed. 45. Then a man's voice exploded through the line, breathless and frantic. "Where is she? Where's my mother? Is she hurt? Tell me where you are right now." "She's okay," Aaliyah said quickly. "She's safe. We're at Thompson's Groceries on Mr. Thompson. What's the address, Mr.?" Thompson rattled it off, and Aaliyah repeated it into the phone. "Don't move," the man Ethan said. His voice shook. "Don't let her out of your sight. I'm coming right now. 10 minutes. I'm leaving now." "We'll be here," Aaliyah promised. The line went dead. Aaliyah lowered the phone, and her hands were trembling. She looked at Evelyn, who was humming again, seemingly content now that she was warm and dry. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. "You want some soup?" he asked. "Got some cans in the back. Chicken noodle." Aaliyah's stomach cramped at the mention of food. She opened her purse and pulled out her wallet, knowing what she'd find. $23. All the money in the world to her right now. She looked at Evelyn, at her thin frame, and the way her hands still shook slightly. She looked at Malik, who hadn't complained once, even though she knew he must be hungry too. She thought about the job she'd just lost, about the landlord who wouldn't answer her calls, about the electricity bill that was 2 months past due. Then she thought about her mother and how she'd give anything for one more day to take care of her. "Mr. Thompson," Aaliyah said quietly, "how much for a can of soup and some crackers? For you free." "No." Aaliyah shook her head. "I can pay." She put $15 on the counter, more than the soup and crackers cost, she was sure, but it felt important. Important to give something to not just take. "And could you heat it up for her?" Mr. Thompson looked at the money, then at her, and something understanding passed between them. He took the bills without comment. "Coming right up." While they waited, Aaliyah found a bottle of cold medicine on one of the shelves. Her last $8 went toward that. Evelyn was shivering despite the blanket, and the last thing she needed was pneumonia. When the soup came, Aaliyah held the bowl while Evelyn ate, guiding the spoon when the old woman's hands shook too much. Malik sat on the floor, leaning against Aaliyah's legs, quiet and watchful. "You're very kind," Evelyn said between spoonfuls. She looked at Aaliyah with clearer eyes, now warmer from the tea and soup. "What's your name, dear?" "Aaliyah." "Aaliyah," Evelyn repeated. "That's a beautiful name. Sarah would have liked you." "Who's Sarah?" "My daughter." "She—" Evelyn's face clouded again. "She's not here anymore, but you remind me of her. She was kind, too." Aaliyah felt her throat tighten. "Thank you." They sat in comfortable silence until headlights swept across the storefront windows, bright, expensive headlights attached to a black Mercedes sedan that looked like it cost more than Aaliyah had earned in the last 5 years combined. The car barely stopped before the driver's door flew open and a man rushed out. He was in his late 30s, Aaliyah guessed, wearing a suit that probably cost $1,000, his dark hair slightly disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. His face was tight with worry and fear and something that looked like barely contained panic. Ethan Hayes burst through the door of Thompson's Groceries like a man fleeing a burning building. "Mom!" He spotted Evelyn and was across the room in 3 strides, dropping to his knees in front of her chair. "Mom, oh my God, are you okay? Are you hurt?" "Ethan." Evelyn looked at him confused for a moment, then her face brightened with recognition. "There you are. I was looking for you." "I know, Mom. I know." He took her hands, checking her over with desperate eyes, her face, her arms, making sure she was really there and really whole. "You can't do this. You can't leave like that. I've been searching for 2 hours. I thought—" His voice broke. Evelyn patted his cheek with one trembling hand. "Don't fuss. I'm fine. This nice girl helped me." Ethan turned, then seeming to register Aaliyah's presence for the first time. He stood slowly, taking in the sight of her soaked clothes, still damp, no coat exhaustion written in every line of her face. Malik pressed closer to his mother's side, suddenly shy. "You found her," Ethan said, his voice rough. "You called me." "Yes, sir." "Where was she?" "On a bench. On Westheimer, near the bus stop. She was alone in the rain." Something passed across Ethan's face, horror, guilt, gratitude all at once. "How long were you with her?" Aaliyah checked her phone. 6:32 p.m. Nearly 2 hours. 2 hours passed when her shift should have started. "A while," she said simply. Ethan's eyes moved to her son, then back to her face. He seemed to be adding something up her clothes, her son, the time of day. "You were waiting for the bus." It wasn't a question. "Yes. And you got off to help my mother." Aaliyah didn't answer. She didn't need to. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, they were bright with unshed tears. "Thank you," he said, and the words sounded like they were being pulled from somewhere deep inside him. "Thank you for stopping. Thank you for staying with her. Thank you for keeping her safe." "Anyone would have done the same," Aaliyah said quietly. "No," Ethan said, and his voice was certain. "No, they wouldn't have." Ethan insisted on paying for everything at Thompson's, the soup, the medicine, and $100 more that he pressed into Mr. Thompson's hand for your kindness. Then he turned to Aaliyah. "Please let me drive you home," he said. "Both of you. It's the least I can do." Aaliyah wanted to refuse. She'd learned a long time ago that accepting help from people with money often came with strings-attached expectations she couldn't meet. But Malik was swaying on his feet, exhausted, and the thought of waiting for another bus in the rain made her bones ache. "Okay," she said. "Thank you." The Mercedes was warm and dry leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to be. Malik climbed into the back seat next to Evelyn, and Aaliyah watched in the rearview mirror as the old woman patted his hand gently, murmuring something that made him smile. Aaliyah gave Ethan her address, and she saw something flicker across his face when she said the street name, the kind of recognition that came from knowing exactly what kind of neighborhood that was, the kind of place people with Mercedes sedans didn't visit unless they had to. They drove in silence for a while, rain drumming on the roof. Then Ethan spoke, his voice careful. "May I ask you something?" "Sure." "Were you going to work when you stopped for my mother?" Aaliyah kept her eyes on the passing streetlights. "First day at a new job." "And you missed it?" "Yes." She heard him take a slow breath. "I'm sorry." "Not your fault. I made a choice." Still, he was quiet for another moment. "What kind of work?" "Waitressing. Morrison's Diner." "Is that where you want to work?" The question surprised her. "Want doesn't have much to do with it. It's what I could get." Ethan nodded slowly, and Aaliyah could feel him thinking, calculating something. When they pulled up to her building, a sagging apartment complex with boarded windows and graffiti tags on the walls, Ethan put the car in park but didn't turn off the engine. "Can I buy you dinner?" he asked suddenly. "Please, there's a diner 3 blocks from here, Eddie's Place I think it's called. Nothing fancy. Just let me do this. As a thank you." Aaliyah wanted to say no, but Malik hadn't eaten since that half sandwich hours ago, and she hadn't eaten since yesterday, and the smell of the leather seats was making her lightheaded in a way that had nothing to do with the car. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Just dinner, then we need to get home." Eddie's Place was one of those old-school diners with red vinyl booths and checkered floors, the kind of place that served breakfast all day, and had waitresses who called everyone Hun. They slid into a booth, Evelyn and Ethan on one side, Aaliyah and Malik on the other, and a tired-looking waitress brought them menus and water. Aaliyah ordered a grilled cheese for Malik and a cup of soup for herself, the cheapest things on the menu, even though Ethan was paying. Ethan ordered burgers for himself and his mother, then looked at Aaliyah. "You're not hungry?" he asked gently. "I'm fine." "When did you eat last?" The question was so direct it caught her off guard. She didn't answer. Ethan closed his menu and looked at the waitress. "She'll have the club sandwich with fries. And a chocolate shake for the young man here." "I don't need," Aaliyah started. "I know you don't need it," Ethan said quietly. "I'd like to give it to you anyway. Please." There was no condescension in his voice, no pity, just simple kindness. Aaliyah found she didn't have the energy to argue. While they waited for food, Evelyn reached across the table and took Aaliyah's hand. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "You gave me your coat," the old woman said, lucid and clear. "In the rain. You didn't have another one, did you?" Aaliyah shook her head. "That's the kind of thing Sarah would have done." Evelyn smiled, sad and sweet. "My daughter. She died 3 years ago. Cancer." "I'm sorry," Aaliyah said softly. "My mother died 3 years ago, too. Same thing." Something passed between them, then a recognition of shared grief that needed no words. Ethan watched this exchange, his jaw tight. "Mom's been struggling since Sarah passed. The doctors say it's a combination of grief and early-stage dementia. Some days she's perfectly clear. Other days..." He trailed off, looking at his mother with such love and such fear that it made Aaliyah's heart ache. "She's gotten out 3 times this month. Once we found her at Sarah's old apartment trying to get in. Once at the cemetery. Today she found someone who stopped." Aaliyah finished. "Yes." The food arrived and they ate mostly in silence. Aaliyah tried not to inhale her sandwich, but it was the best thing she'd tasted in weeks. Malik devoured his grilled cheese and half of her fries, and his chocolate shake made him bounce with sudden energy. Evelyn smiled at him. "You're a good boy," she told him. "What's your name?" "Malik, ma'am." "Malik. That's a strong name. Do you take care of your mother?" Malik nodded seriously. "I try to." "I can tell." Evelyn looked at Aaliyah. "You're doing a good job with him." "Thank you," Aaliyah said, and found her eyes burning with sudden tears. It had been so long since anyone had said anything kind about her parenting, about her life. So long since she'd felt like she was doing anything right. After dinner, Ethan walked them to his car, but before he opened the door, he turned to Aaliyah. "I want to offer you something," he said, "and I need you to hear me out completely before you answer." Aaliyah tensed. Here it came, whatever strings were attached to the free meal and the kind words. "My mother needs help," Ethan continued. "She needs someone with her during the day, someone patient and kind, someone who sees her as a person, not just a problem to manage. I've been through 4 professional caregivers in 3 months, and she hates all of them. But with you..." He glanced at his mother, who was holding Malik's hand and pointing out stars through the car window. "She's calm. She's happy. I haven't seen her like this since Sarah died." "You want to hire me," Aaliyah said flatly. "Yes, as a companion caregiver. Not medical. I have nurses for that. Just someone to be with her. Keep her company. Keep her safe." He named a salary that made Aaliyah's head spin more than double what she would have made at the diner. "I can't," she said immediately. "I'm not qualified. I don't have any training. You kept a confused elderly woman calm and safe for 2 hours. You got her warm and fed. You found me. That's all the qualification I need." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "I know this seems strange. I know you have every reason to be suspicious, but I'm asking you to think about it. I'll provide health insurance for you and your son. I'll cover a small apartment near my building so you don't have to commute far. And I promise that if at any point you're uncomfortable, you can walk away. No questions, no problems." Aaliyah stared at him. It was too good, too easy. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. "Why?" she asked. "You could hire anyone. Why me?" Ethan looked at his mother again, and his voice was rough when he spoke. "Because when you found her on that bench, you could have kept walking. You needed that job. You needed that bus. But you chose her instead. You gave her your only coat." He met Aaliyah's eyes. "My mother is the most important person in my world, and she was alone and scared on a bench in the rain. You saved her. Now I'm asking you to help me keep her safe." Aaliyah opened her mouth to refuse again, to explain all the reasons this was impossible, but the words caught in her throat. Because Malik was laughing at something Evelyn said, because she had 8 cents in her bank account and an eviction notice she hadn't opened yet, because her mother had died alone in a hospital while Aaliyah was working 2 jobs to pay for treatments that didn't work, because for the first time in 3 years, someone was offering her not charity, but a job, not pity, but trust. "I need time to think," she said finally. "Of course. Take all the time you need." Ethan pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "That's my personal cell. Call me tomorrow, or the next day, whenever you're ready." He drove them home, really home this time, and Aaliyah carried a sleepy Malik up 3 flights of stairs to their apartment door, where a bright orange notice was taped to the peeling paint. "Notice to vacate. You have 72 hours to remove all belongings from the premises." Aaliyah ripped it down, carried Malik inside, and put him to bed without turning on the lights. The electricity had been cut off 2 days ago. She sat on the floor of their tiny living room, her back against the wall, and pulled out Ethan's business card. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Ethan Hayes. I know you have doubts. I would too. But this isn't charity. This is a desperate son asking for help from the only person who's been able to reach his mother in months. Please consider it. Please." Aaliyah looked at the eviction notice crumpled in her hand. She looked at the business card. She thought about Malik sleeping in the next room, his stomach full for the first time in days. She thought about Evelyn's hand in hers, the way the old woman had called her kind. She picked up her phone and typed 1-month trial. "If anything feels wrong, I leave immediately. No questions asked." The response came within seconds. "Deal. Thank you. Thank you." Aaliyah leaned her head back against the wall and closed her eyes. She'd just said yes to the most insane proposition of her life. The apartment building where Ethan and Evelyn lived was the kind of place Aaliyah had only seen in magazines, all glass and steel and money, that didn't need to announce itself. The doorman wore a uniform. The lobby had fresh flowers that probably cost more than her old monthly rent. The elevator moved so smoothly she barely felt it rising. Malik pressed his nose to the mirrored wall, eyes wide. "Mama, is this where we're going to live?" he whispered. "No, baby. We have our own place nearby. This is where we'll work." Their apartment, the one Ethan had arranged, was 6 blocks away. Small but clean, in a safe building, with working appliances and heat that actually heated. Aaliyah had cried when she'd first walked in, just from the sheer relief of having walls that didn't leak and a door that locked properly. But this was a different world entirely. Ethan met them at the elevator on the 23rd floor. He looked tired, his tie loosened, and his sleeves rolled up like he'd been up all night. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Mom's in the living room. She's been asking for you." The apartment was stunning floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city minimalist furniture in shades of white and gray art on the walls that looked expensive and cold. Everything was perfect. Everything was empty. Evelyn sat in an armchair by the window, staring out at the skyline. When she heard them enter, she turned, and her face lit up. "Aaliyah," she said, and the way she said it with such genuine joy made something warm bloom in Aaliyah's chest. "And Malik, you came back." "We did." Aaliyah crossed to her, kneeling beside the chair. "How are you feeling today?" "Better now that you're here." Evelyn reached for her hand. "I don't like when it's just me and the nurses. They're very efficient, but they don't talk to me. Not really. They talk at me." "Well, I'll talk to you," Aaliyah promised, "about anything you want." And she did. For the next 4 hours, while Ethan disappeared into his home office for work calls and Malik quietly colored at the dining room table, Aaliyah sat with Evelyn. They talked about Evelyn's childhood in a small town in Georgia. They talked about her late husband, James, who'd been a dreamer and a builder. They talked about Sarah, the daughter who'd loved poetry and died too young. Sometimes Evelyn's thoughts wandered, looping back on themselves or jumping to strange tangents. But Aaliyah followed her gently, never correcting, never showing frustration. When lunch came, delivered by a meal service in perfect white boxes, Aaliyah helped Evelyn eat, cutting her sandwich into small pieces and making sure she drank her water. Malik brought over one of his coloring books. "Mrs. Evelyn, do you want to color with me?" Evelyn's eyes brightened. "I'd love to." They colored together, Evelyn's hands shaking slightly, but her face peaceful. Malik chattered about his favorite cartoon and the stray cat in their old building, and Evelyn listened like every word was precious. Aaliyah watched them and felt something shift inside her, a sense that maybe, just maybe, she could do this. Around 3 o'clock, the front door opened and a woman walked in. She was younger than Ethan, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled into a severe bun and a power suit that screamed attorney. Her heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floor, and her eyes swept the room with the kind of assessment that felt more like an interrogation. "Ethan," she called, "we need to talk." Ethan emerged from his office, and Aaliyah saw him tense. "Vanessa, I didn't know you were coming by." Clearly, Vanessa's gaze landed on Aaliyah, then Malik, then Evelyn. Her expression was unreadable, but something about it made Aaliyah's skin prickle. "Who's this?" "This is Aaliyah Brown. She's Mom's new companion. Aaliyah, this is my sister Vanessa." Aaliyah stood smoothing her shirt. "Nice to meet you." Vanessa didn't shake her hand. "Companion," she repeated. "Since when?" "Since 2 days ago," Ethan said, his voice careful. "I told you I was looking for someone new. You told me you'd consult with me before making any hiring decisions regarding our mother." "Vanessa?" "No, Ethan. This is exactly the kind of impulsive decision that got you in trouble before." Vanessa crossed her arms. "No background check, no references, just a random woman you met on the street." Aaliyah felt her face grow hot. Malik moved closer to her side. "That's enough," Ethan said quietly. "Aaliyah isn't random. She found Mom when she was lost. She kept her safe." "How convenient." Vanessa's smile didn't reach her eyes. "And now she's living nearby, earning how much per month, with full benefits, I assume." "That's none of your concern." "It absolutely is my concern. That's family money. That's Mom's money." Vanessa turned to Aaliyah. "No offense, Miss Brown, but my brother has a history of trusting the wrong people. I'm sure you understand that we need to be careful." Aaliyah understood perfectly. She understood that Vanessa looked at her and saw a grifter, a con artist, someone taking advantage of a vulnerable old woman and her wealthy son. She understood that in Vanessa's world, people like Aaliyah didn't help out of kindness. They helped because they wanted something. "I understand," Aaliyah said evenly. "And if you want to run a background check, you can. I have nothing to hide." "Oh, I intend to." Vanessa pulled out her phone. "Ethan, a word, in private." The two siblings disappeared into the home office, but their voices carried Vanessa's sharp and insistent, Ethan's low and defensive. Aaliyah sat back down next to Evelyn, who was looking confused and distressed. "Who is that?" the old woman asked. "That's your daughter, Vanessa." "Vanessa." Evelyn frowned. "She seems angry." "Why is she angry?" "It's okay. She's just worried about you." Aaliyah squeezed her hand gently. "That's what family does. They worry." But inside, Aaliyah's stomach was churning. She knew this feeling, the feeling of being judged, of having every choice questioned, of being one wrong move away from losing everything. When Ethan and Vanessa finally emerged, Vanessa's expression was tight, with barely concealed fury. She looked at Aaliyah, and this time her smile was pure ice. "We'll be keeping a very close eye on this arrangement," she said, "for Mom's protection." "Of course," Aaliyah said. After Vanessa left, Ethan apologized profusely. "She means well. She's just protective." "I understand," Aaliyah said again. And she did. But understanding didn't make it hurt less. The rest of the week passed in a careful rhythm. Aaliyah arrived each morning at 8, spent the day with Evelyn, and left at 5. Malik came with her most days, and Evelyn seemed to love having him around. The old woman was more animated with the boy there, more present. But Aaliyah could feel Vanessa's presence, even when she wasn't there, in the way Ethan sometimes hesitated before leaving them alone, in the occasional question about her past that felt more like a test than curiosity. On Friday afternoon, Aaliyah took Evelyn down to the small park in the building's courtyard. It was a beautiful fall day, warm enough to sit outside. Malik pushed Evelyn's wheelchair. She didn't always need it, but today her legs were weak, and they fed the birds with bread Aaliyah had brought. Ethan came home early and found them there. Aaliyah looked up to see him standing by the courtyard entrance, watching them. For a moment, his face was unguarded, and she saw raw hope, their hope that his mother might be okay, that this strange arrangement might actually work. Then his phone rang, and the moment passed. That evening, Vanessa made another unannounced visit. This time, she barely acknowledged. Aaliyah just spoke quietly with Ethan in the hallway, but Aaliyah caught fragments of the conversation, investigating her background. "You're making a mistake. What if she's just waiting for the right moment?" Aaliyah gathered her things and collected Malik, ready to leave. Ethan walked her to the elevator. "I'm sorry about my sister." "It's fine." "It's not fine. You've been nothing but good to my mother, to us." Aaliyah pressed the elevator button. "She loves her family. That's not a bad thing." "No," Ethan agreed, "but sometimes love can look a lot like control." The elevator arrived and Aaliyah stepped inside with Malik. As the doors began to close, she saw Vanessa appear in the hallway, behind Ethan, her phone pressed to her ear, her eyes fixed on Aaliyah with an expression that promised trouble. The doors closed. "Mama," Malik said quietly, "that lady doesn't like us." "I know, baby." "Are we going to have to leave?" Aaliyah pulled him close. "I don't know. But whatever happens, we'll be okay. We always are." She tried to sound confident, but as they rode down to the lobby, all she could think about was Vanessa's cold smile and the feeling that she was standing on ice that was already beginning to crack. The bomb dropped on a Tuesday morning. Aaliyah was helping Evelyn with breakfast when Ethan emerged from his office, his face ashen. Behind him, Vanessa stood in the doorway, holding a manila folder like a weapon. "We need to talk," Vanessa said, and her voice had the sharp finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. Aaliyah's stomach dropped. She carefully set down Evelyn's teacup and straightened, forcing herself to meet Vanessa's gaze. "Malik, honey, why don't you go color in the other room?" Aaliyah said quietly. "But Mama." "Now please." Malik reluctantly gathered his things and disappeared into the guest bedroom, leaving Aaliyah standing alone in the living room, like a defendant awaiting verdict. Vanessa walked over slowly, deliberately, her heels clicking against the floor with each measured step. She dropped the folder onto the coffee table with a sharp slap. "I had you investigated," she said, "thoroughly." "Vanessa," Ethan started, but his sister held up a hand. "No, Ethan, you need to hear this." She flipped open the folder, pulling out papers one by one, like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "Aaliyah Brown, 30 years old, high school graduate, 1 year of community college before dropping out. No degree, no certifications, no professional caregiver training whatsoever." "I never claimed to have training," Aaliyah said, keeping her voice steady even as her heart hammered. "No, you didn't. But here's what you also didn't mention." Vanessa pulled out another page. "Arrested 2 years ago for criminal trespassing." The room went silent except for the sound of Evelyn humming softly to herself, unaware of the tension crackling through the air. "That's not," Aaliyah began. "It's right here in black and white." Vanessa thrust the paper toward her. "You broke into an apartment building. The police were called. You were taken into custody." "I didn't break in," Aaliyah said, her voice shaking now. "That was my apartment. My son's medication was inside, and the landlord had illegally changed the locks while I was at work. I had every right." The charges were filed. The charges were dropped. Aaliyah's composure cracked. "Because I proved it was my apartment, and what the landlord did was illegal. Call them. Call the police department. They'll tell you." Vanessa continued as if Aaliyah hadn't spoken. "Evicted from 2 apartments in 3 years. $5,000 in credit card debt. Multiple accounts in collections." She looked up, her expression somewhere between pity and disgust. "You're desperate, financially unstable, and now you've inserted yourself into the life of a wealthy, vulnerable, elderly woman and her trusting son." "That's not what happened," Aaliyah said, but her voice was weak now, defeated, because she could see how it looked, see how easily the pieces of her messy, struggling life could be rearranged into a narrative of manipulation and greed. Ethan was staring at the papers, his jaw tight. "Aaliyah, why didn't you tell me about the arrest?" "I did tell the employment agency when you had them do the initial screening. They verified everything. They cleared me." She looked at him, pleading now. "You can call them. They'll confirm." "Or maybe they didn't look hard enough," Vanessa interjected. "Or maybe you have a very convincing story." She turned to her brother. "Ethan, this is exactly what happened with Marcus. Remember, Your former business partner who you trusted completely, who had access to everything, who stole $300,000 before we caught him." Ethan flinched at the name. "She's not Marcus," he said, but there was doubt in his voice now. Aaliyah could hear it, and it cut deeper than Vanessa's accusations. "How do you know?" Vanessa pressed. "You met her 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks, Ethan. "And you've already given her access to Mom to this apartment to your trust. You're paying her more than most caregivers make in 6 months. You've set her up in an apartment. Stop." Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. "Just stop." Vanessa fell silent, but her eyes remained fixed on Aaliyah with cold certainty. Ethan turned to Aaliyah, and the look on his face, the uncertainty, the suspicion was worse than anything Vanessa had said. "Is any of this wrong?" he asked. "The debts, the evictions, the arrest. The facts are right," Aaliyah said, her throat tight. "But the context, the why behind them, that's not in any police report. My mother got sick. I took time off work to care for her. I lost my job. I used credit cards to pay for her medications because insurance wouldn't cover them. After she died, I couldn't catch up. I tried. God, I tried so hard." Her voice broke. "But when you're poor, every setback becomes a catastrophe. One missed payment becomes 3, becomes debt collectors, becomes eviction." "How convenient," Vanessa muttered. "It's not convenient. It's my life." Aaliyah looked at Ethan, desperate for him to understand. "I never lied to you. I never pretended to be something I'm not. You asked me to help your mother, and I have. That's all I've done." "You've done more than that," Vanessa said sharply. "You've made yourself indispensable. You've gotten our mother to depend on you emotionally. You've positioned yourself perfectly to what?" Aaliyah demanded, anger finally breaking through. "To what exactly I show up every day. I feed your mother. I listen to her stories. I make sure she takes her medication. I help her walk to the bathroom. I wipe her face when she spills tea. What terrible scheme is that part of—" "The long game," Vanessa said. "You're playing the long game. Earn trust, become irreplaceable, and then when the time is right, get out." The voice was thin and reedy, but it cut through the argument like a knife. They all turned. Evelyn was standing, one hand gripping the back of her chair, her face flushed with anger Aaliyah had never seen before. "Mom," Ethan started. "No." Evelyn's hand trembled, but her voice was steady. "I may forget things. I may not always know what day it is, but I'm not stupid and I'm not deaf." She pointed at Vanessa. "You, out of my house." "Mom, I'm trying to protect you." "From what? From someone who treats me like a human being? From someone who doesn't talk to me like I'm already dead?" Evelyn's eyes were bright with tears. "Aaliyah is the first person in a year who's made me feel like I matter, and you want to take that away because of some papers. She has debts, Mom. She's desperate. So was I." Evelyn's voice cracked. "When your father died and the company nearly went bankrupt, I was desperate too. I had 2 children to feed and creditors calling at all hours. Does that make me a criminal? Does that make me unworthy of trust?" Vanessa's face went white. "That's different." "Why? Because I'm your mother. Because I'm rich now." Evelyn shook her head slowly. "Or because you can't imagine that someone might be kind without wanting something in return." The silence that followed was deafening. Then Evelyn turned to Aaliyah, and her expression softened. "I'm sorry, dear. I'm so sorry you had to hear this." "It's okay," Aaliyah said, even though it wasn't, even though she felt like she'd been flayed open, every private shame exposed and picked apart. "I should go." "No," Evelyn said. "Don't go. Please don't go." But Aaliyah was already gathering her purse, already moving toward the bedroom to collect Malik, because she knew how this worked. She knew that doubt once planted grew roots, and Ethan's doubt had been written clearly on his face when he'd asked about her arrest, about her debts, about the messy desperation of her life. She couldn't stay where she wasn't trusted. She wouldn't. Malik was coloring quietly when she entered, but he looked up at her face and immediately closed his book. "We're leaving?" he asked. "Yes, baby." "Because of the mean lady." "Because—" Aaliyah couldn't finish the sentence. Because she was tired. Because she was angry. Because she'd been so stupid to think this could work, that she could cross the chasm between her world and theirs. "Because it's time to go." She led Malik back through the living room. Ethan stood frozen, the folder still in his hands. Vanessa had her arms crossed, her expression righteous and satisfied. Evelyn sat in her chair, tears streaming down her face. "Aaliyah, wait," Ethan said. Can we talk about this?" "About what?" Aaliyah stopped at the door. About whether I'm trustworthy, about whether I'm running some kind of con, you already have your sister's answer. And honestly, Mr. Hayes, I don't have the energy to convince you otherwise." "I don't think you're running a con," Ethan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "But you're not sure. You're wondering. And I can't." Her voice broke. "I can't work somewhere where every kindness is going to be examined for ulterior motives, where every conversation with your mother is going to be analyzed for signs of manipulation. I grew up with people assuming the worst about me because of where I lived and how much money we didn't have. I won't live like that again." She pulled the apartment key and building access card from her purse and set them on the entry table. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Hayes. I hope your mother finds someone who can help her." She opened the door. "Aaliyah, don't!" Evelyn called out, her voice breaking. "Please don't leave me." Aaliyah paused, her hand on the doorknob, every instinct screaming at her to turn back. But she'd learned long ago that sometimes you had to walk away, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and she wasn't sure if she was talking to Evelyn or to herself. She stepped into the hallway with Malik, and the apartment door clicked shut behind them. They were halfway to the elevator when she heard another door open, not behind them, but to their left, Ethan's home office, which had a separate entrance to the hallway for client meetings. Aaliyah glanced over and froze. Vanessa was inside, and she wasn't alone. The office was dark, except for the blue glow of a computer screen. Vanessa was crouched beneath Ethan's desk, her phone flashlight in her mouth, and in her hands was some kind of small device, black rectangular, no bigger than a pack of gum. She was attaching it to the underside of the desk with what looked like adhesive putty. Aaliyah's breath caught. She pulled Malik back, pressing them both against the wall outside the office door, partially hidden by a decorative column. Vanessa worked quickly, pressing the device firmly in place, then testing it with a tap of her finger. She pulled out her phone, the flashlight off now, and appeared to be checking something on the screen. A smile crossed her face, satisfied and cold. Then she stood, brushed off her suit, and exited the office the way she'd come in through the main apartment. Aaliyah's mind raced. A listening device. It had to be. Vanessa was bugging her own brother's office. For a long moment, Aaliyah stood paralyzed. This wasn't her problem anymore. She'd just quit. She should take Malik and walk away. Let the Hayes family implode on its own dysfunction. But then she thought about Evelyn's face, tears streaming. She thought about Ethan's exhaustion, the way he carried the weight of his mother's care alone. She thought about being accused of terrible things while the person doing the accusing was literally committing crimes. "Mama, what's wrong?" Malik whispered. Aaliyah pulled out her phone with shaking hands. She dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? "I'm at the Meridian Tower, apartment 2,307 inches, Aaliyah said, keeping her voice low. "I just witnessed someone installing what I believe is an illegal surveillance device in a private office. The person is still in the building." "Can you describe the individual?" "White female, early 30s, dark hair, wearing a gray suit. Her name is Vanessa Hayes. She's the sister of the apartment's owner, Ethan Hayes." There was a pause. "You're certain about what you saw?" "Completely certain. I can see the device from here if you need verification. It's under the desk in the office separate entrance unit 2307B. Officers are on their way. Please stay on the line and remain where you are." Aaliyah hung up anyway. She wasn't supposed to be here anymore. She'd already quit, already walked away. But she couldn't leave Ethan completely in the dark. She texted his number. "Before I leave for good, check your office camera footage from the last 10 minutes. Check under your desk. I called the police. I'm sorry." Aaliyah, then she took Malik's hand and walked to the elevator, pressing the button. The elevator arrived just as she heard sirens in the distance. They rode down in silence. When they reached the lobby, 2 police cruisers were pulling up outside. Aaliyah pointed the officers toward the 23rd floor, gave a brief statement, and provided her contact information. Then she and Malik walked out into the evening air. Her phone buzzed continuously. Ethan calling, texting, calling again, but she didn't answer. She couldn't. Not yet. Not until she'd had time to process everything that had happened, everything that had been said. They walked the 6 blocks to their small apartment, and Aaliyah felt each step like a mile. Inside, she made Malik dinner pasta with butter, the same thing they'd eaten 100 times before, and put him to bed with a story. Then she sat on their tiny balcony in the dark and let herself cry. She cried for the job she'd lost, For the trust that had been broken before it was fully formed, for Evelyn, who deserved better than a family that saw threats around every corner. She cried until her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a video file. She opened it, and security camera footage began to play, black and white timestamp in the corner. It showed Vanessa entering Ethan's office through the hallway door, moving to the desk, and attaching the device exactly as Aaliyah had described. Another text followed, this time from Ethan's number. The police arrested her. She's claiming she was just trying to protect me from you. They found 2 other listening devices, one in Mom's room, one in the kitchen. She's been recording us for weeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. I should have believed you. Please call me. Please. Aaliyah stared at the messages for a long time. Then she turned off her phone, wrapped herself in a blanket, and sat in the darkness until dawn. Aaliyah didn't call Ethan back for 3 days. She spent that time in a strange limbo, not quite homeless, but no longer employed, not quite broke, but with no clear path forward. She'd been given 2 weeks severance pay, delivered by a courier who'd also brought a handwritten note from Ethan that she hadn't opened yet. On the 4th day, there was a knock on her door. Through the peephole, she saw Ethan standing in the hallway holding a cardboard carrier with coffee cups and what looked like pastries. He looked terrible, unshaven, rumpled his eyes, shadowed with exhaustion. Aaliyah opened the door halfway. "Hi," Ethan said. His voice was hoarse. "Can I come in, please?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. Ethan entered her small apartment, and she saw him take it in the worn furniture, the kitchen table that wobbled, the walls that needed paint. He didn't comment, just set the coffee and pastries down carefully. "I didn't know if you drank coffee," he said. "I brought tea too, just in case. And some things for Malik chocolate croissants. I think kids like those." "Ethan." He stopped looking at her with such raw misery that Aaliyah almost felt sorry for him. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know I already said that in the text, but I need to say it to your face. I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry I didn't shut Vanessa down immediately. I'm sorry I let her make you feel like a criminal when you've been nothing but good to my mother, to all of us." Aaliyah crossed her arms, leaning against the kitchen counter. "Your sister bugged your apartment." "She did. She's been doing it for months, apparently, ever since our last caregiver quit. She told the police she was monitoring the situation to protect Mom and me from potential threats." He laughed bitterly. The irony is that the only threat was her. She was so convinced that everyone was trying to take advantage of us that she became the one violating our privacy, our trust. What's going to happen to her? She's facing charges, illegal surveillance, invasion of privacy. Our family lawyer is working on a plea deal, mandatory therapy, community service probation. No jail time if she complies. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "She's sick, Aaliyah. I know that doesn't excuse what she did to you, but she's been spiraling since Sarah died, obsessing over protecting Mom, over making sure no one could hurt us again. It turned into paranoia." "I'm sorry," Aaliyah said and meant it. "That must be hard for you." "It is, but it doesn't change what happened, what I did." He looked at her directly. "I let fear make my decisions. I let Vanessa's paranoia become my paranoia. And I accused you, someone who'd done nothing but show kindness, of being a con artist. That was wrong. And I'm sorry." Aaliyah was quiet for a moment. "Your mother," she said finally. "How is she?" Ethan's face crumpled. "Not good. She's been asking for you every day. She doesn't understand why you left. I've tried to explain, but—" He shook his head. "She just keeps saying, 'I want to see Aaliyah. Where's Malik?' It's breaking my heart." "Ethan, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know you should tell me to leave and never contact you again. But I'm asking anyway." He pulled out a folder similar to the one Vanessa had brought, but new, unstained by her poison. "This is a new contract, different terms, more protections for you." He opened it, showing her the pages. "First, everything is in writing. Job description, salary, benefits, termination clauses. All of it clear and legal. Second, you have the right to refuse any request you're uncomfortable with, no questions asked. Third, if there's ever a problem, we talk about it directly. No investigations, no surveillance, no going behind anyone's back. And fourth," he pulled out another sheet. "This is a letter from my lawyer confirming that your background has been thoroughly reviewed and cleared. No arrests, no concerns, nothing that would prevent you from working with vulnerable adults. This is your proof in writing that you are exactly who you say you are." Aaliyah took the papers with trembling hands. everything she'd needed to hear written down in black and white. "There's one more thing," Ethan said quietly. "I want you to have conditions too. Things that would make you feel safe working for us again. Anything. Name it." She looked up at him surprised. "I mean it," he said. "You have the power here, Aaliyah, not me. You saved my mother's life, and I repaid you by doubting you. If there's any chance you'd consider coming back, I need to know what would make that possible for you." Aaliyah set the papers down and thought carefully. "3 things," she said finally. "First, if you have a problem with me, you come to me directly. No third parties, no investigators. We talk like adults. Done. Second, Vanessa doesn't get unsupervised access to your mother while I'm working. If she visits, either you're there or I'm allowed to leave. I won't subject myself to her accusations again, and I won't let her upset Evelyn." Ethan nodded grimly. "Already arranged. She's not allowed in the apartment without my presence, and only after she completes therapy. If she violates that, she loses access entirely. Third," Aaliyah paused, "I want to finish my education. I dropped out of community college to care for my mother, and I've always regretted it. If I'm going to really do this as a career, I want proper training. I want to become a certified nursing assistant, maybe more. I'll need time for classes for studying." "We'll make it work," Ethan said immediately. "Whatever schedule you need. I'll hire additional help for the hours you're in class, and I'll cover tuition books, everything. I'll pay you back." "No." His voice was firm. "This isn't a loan. It's an investment. In you, in your future. You're not just helping my mother. You're teaching me how to be a better son, a better person. That's worth more than any amount of money." Aaliyah felt tears prick her eyes. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay. I'll come back." The relief on Ethan's face was so profound that she almost laughed. "1-month trial period still," she added, "just to make sure this really works." 1 month, he agreed. "And Aaliyah, thank you. Truly, thank you." They started again the following Monday. Aaliyah arrived at the apartment at 8 a.m., and Evelyn burst into tears the moment she saw her. "You came back," the old woman sobbed, clutching Aaliyah's hands. "I thought you'd left me for good." "Never," Aaliyah promised, hugging her gently. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Malik gave Evelyn a drawing he'd made a picture of the 3 of them in the park, all smiling under a blue sky, and Evelyn hung it on her refrigerator with magnets right at eye level. The days fell into a rhythm again, but different this time. Better. Aaliyah helped Evelyn with her physical therapy exercises. They took slow walks around the courtyard. They watched old movies and looked through photo albums, Evelyn telling stories about Sarah and James and the life she'd lived. Some days were harder than others. Some days Evelyn forgot who Aaliyah was calling her Sarah or asking why she was in her house. But Aaliyah had learned patience from her own mother, and she guided Evelyn gently through the confusion without frustration. Ethan came home earlier now, making time for dinner with them. He'd bring takeout, and they'd eat together, Evelyn, Ethan, Aaliyah, and Malik, like some strange, improvised family. One evening, Malik asked Evelyn, "Do you have grandkids?" Evelyn thought about it. Sarah never had children, and Ethan... She looked at her son. "You've been too busy, haven't you?" "I have," Ethan admitted. "So I guess you're my honorary grandson," Evelyn told Malik, ruffling his hair. "How about that?" Malik beamed. "Cool." In October, Aaliyah started classes at the community college 2 evenings a week, working toward her nursing assistant certification. Ethan hired a woman named Claire to cover those shifts, a kind older woman with actual credentials who treated Evelyn with respect, but never quite connected with her the way Aaliyah did. Aaliyah studied late into the night, and sometimes she'd find notes slipped under her apartment door, practice quizzes Ethan had printed out, highlighted textbooks he'd ordered, once even a care package with coffee and chocolate, and a note that said, "You're doing great." By December, Evelyn's condition had deteriorated noticeably. She slept more, ate less, sometimes didn't recognize her own apartment. But when Aaliyah was there, she seemed calmer, more at peace. One afternoon, Evelyn asked Aaliyah to help her with something. "I want to write down my family," she said, "so I don't forget." Aaliyah brought paper and markers, and together they created a family tree. Evelyn dictated "James, my husband" at the top. Aaliyah wrote it down. Then Ethan, "My son," she smiled. "Such a good boy." "Vanessa, my daughter." The smile faded a bit. "She's confused right now, but she loves me." "And Sarah, my other daughter. She's..." Evelyn's voice wavered. "She's gone, isn't she?" "Yes." Aaliyah said gently. But she's still part of your family. We'll write her down too. Evelyn nodded, tears in her eyes. They filled in the tree together, and then Evelyn pointed to a blank space. There, she said, write Aaliyah. Mrs. Hayes, this is your family tree. And your family, Evelyn said firmly. You and Malik. I want you written down, right here. She pointed again, insistent. Write Aaliyah, daughter of my heart, and Malik, grandson of my heart. Aaliyah's vision blurred with tears, but she wrote it down exactly as Evelyn asked. When she was done, Evelyn studied the paper with satisfaction. There, she said. Now. It's complete. Winter came, and with it, the inevitable. Evelyn's lucid moments became rarer. She stopped eating much, she slept most of the day, and when she woke she was often confused about where she was, what year it was, who was president. But she always knew Aaliyah. You're the girl with the coat, she'd say, smiling. You gave me your coat in the rain. That's right, Aaliyah would say, holding her hand. I did. That was very kind. You're worth it. One February morning, Aaliyah arrived to find Ethan red-eyed and exhausted. She had a bad night, he said. The hospice nurse said it won't be long now. Aaliyah's heart clenched, but she nodded. She'd known this was coming. They all had. She spent the day sitting beside Evelyn's bed, holding her hand, talking softly. Malik sat on the floor doing homework, occasionally looking up to smile at the old woman who'd become his grandmother. Ethan came in and out, making phone calls, handling arrangements, but always returning to sit on the other side of his mother's bed. As evening fell, Evelyn opened her eyes. They were clearer than they'd been in weeks, focused and present. Aaliyah, she whispered, I'm here. I want to tell you something. Evelyn's grip on her hand was weak but steady. That day, the day you found me. Yes, you gave me soup, and your coat, and your time. She paused, gathering strength. You thought it was nothing, just a small kindness. But to me, her voice broke, to me it was everything, because I was so lost and so alone, and you saw me, really saw me. You made me matter. Tears streamed down Aaliyah's face. You've always mattered. Because of you, I had these months, these beautiful months with my son, with you, with Malik. I wasn't alone. Evelyn's eyes moved to Ethan. Thank you for listening to me, for bringing her back. Mom, Ethan's voice cracked. And you. She looked at Malik, who'd moved closer to the bed. You made me laugh again. That's a gift, young man. Don't ever forget how important laughter is. I won't, Grandma Evelyn, Malik whispered. Evelyn smiled. Grandma Evelyn, I like that. She closed her eyes, then still smiling, and her breathing slowed. Aaliyah, Ethan, and Malik sat with her as the light faded outside the windows, as the city below lit up with its 1,000 lights, as the world continued turning. And sometime in the quiet hours of that February night, with her family, both born and chosen, gathered around her, Evelyn Hayes slipped away. Peaceful, loved, not alone. The memorial service was small, held in the apartment with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Vanessa came thin and pale and apologized to Aaliyah with tears in her eyes. Aaliyah hugged her because grief made all of them fragile, and holding grudges seemed pointless now. They scattered Evelyn's ashes in the park she'd loved, and Malik left a drawing by the tree where they'd once fed birds together. Afterward, Ethan asked Aaliyah to come to his office. There's something Mom wanted you to have, he said, handing her an envelope. Inside was a check, enough money to cover the rest of her tuition, and then some, and a letter in Evelyn's shaky handwriting. Dear Aaliyah, you gave me your last coat. I want to give you a beginning. Use this to finish your education. Use it to help others the way you helped me. And remember that kindness is never wasted, even when it costs everything. Love, Evelyn. Aaliyah held the letter to her chest and cried. 2 years later, Aaliyah walked across the stage in a blue gown and accepted her nursing degree. Malik cheered from the audience, sitting next to Ethan, who was beaming like a proud father. After graduation, Ethan made her an offer. I want to start a foundation, he said, in my mother's name, providing free or low-cost companion care for elderly people who can't afford it. I want you to run it. Me? You? You know what these families need. You understand what it's like to be desperate and scared and just trying to survive. That's the perspective we need. Aaliyah thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes, she said, let's do it. The Evelyn Hayes Memorial Foundation opened its doors that fall. They hired caregivers from low-income communities, provided training, paid fair wages. They matched isolated elderly people with companions who saw them as human beings, not just problems to manage. And on rainy afternoons when Aaliyah visited clients, she always carried an extra coat. 3 years after that first rainy day, Aaliyah stood outside a subsidized housing complex in northeast Houston. Rain poured down, and through the window of a ground-floor apartment, she could see an elderly woman sitting alone, staring at nothing. Aaliyah knocked. The woman who answered was white, maybe 70, confused and wary. "Can I help you?" she asked. "My name is Aaliyah Brown. I'm with the Evelyn Hayes Memorial Foundation. Your neighbor, Mrs. Chen, called us. She's worried about you." The woman blinked. "I don't need help." "Maybe not," Aaliyah said gently. "But could I come in for just a minute? I have some soup. It's warm." Behind her, Malik, now 9 years old and tall for his age, held an umbrella and a bag with containers of food. The woman looked at them, at the rain, at the genuine kindness in Aaliyah's face. "Okay," she said finally. "Just for a minute." As they stepped inside, Aaliyah caught Malik's eye and smiled. He smiled back, understanding what his mother had taught him, that small acts of kindness could change everything, that seeing people really seeing them was the greatest gift you could give, that sometimes giving away your last coat meant you'd eventually help build a whole closet of coats for others. The rain fell steadily outside, washing the streets clean, and inside a small apartment, a lonely woman who'd thought no one cared anymore found herself surrounded by warmth and food and conversation, found herself seen, found herself not alone. That day, Aaliyah gave away her last coat. She thought she was losing the only thing she had left, but really she was planting the first seed of a new family, a new future for herself, for her son, for a lost old woman, and for countless others who would come after.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.